Hey everyone, this is the composition that I was playing today. Now, I'm not going to go through the early, mid game and late game with you in this video, mainly because I'm going to show you in a 2x video. We're going to go over the game and analyze the VOD. What I really want you to take away is look at this comp. This does not look like a cookie cutter comp that you see in a guide. This is not 4 blasters, 4 brawlers. This is 3 cybernetics, 2 brawlers, 2 vanguards, 2 chrono, 2 mystic, 2 blaster. Like, it's a bit all over the place. But what I really want you to take away is that this meta, and I finally figured out kind of how to play this meta isn't about building your synergies and expecting to win. This meta is very much about, can I get a good carry unit and somehow fit it into a composition that makes sense? And in this case, I had 2 carry units. One was Jinx and the other was Echo. Echo is an incredibly good 5 cost, especially when at 2-star. And a lot of this meta is about 5 costs. It's about the Aurelian Souls. It's about the Urgots. You know, the correct use of Janna, the 2-star Lulu. There are a lot of really big 5 costs that can win you the game in this meta. And a lot of that meta is about getting to level 8 and level 9 and finding them and then fitting them into a composition. So I wanted to talk about this comp specifically because it was a very interesting comp. And, you know, on paper you'd think this shouldn't win, but in this meta it can. Thanks to G2A for sponsoring the channel, by the way. We are got a reference link to the marketplace in the description below. If you want to click on it, feel free. Right, let's dive into the analysis of this game then. We're going to do a 2x analysis. So firstly, let's start about the carousel. My favorite item on the carousel is gloves, mainly because it builds into lots of really good things. Infinity Edge, Last Whisper, Quicksilver, Trap Claw, Shroud of Stillness is useful, Thief's Gloves are great in the early game. I think there's just a lot of good options that you can make with Brawler's Gloves, so that's why I like to prioritize it on the early carousel. The second thing is that you might say, but Excoundrel, Last Whisper, like, I've heard people say, what's the point in having Last Whisper? Because there's Janna and she basically makes Last Whisper invalid in the late game. What I would say is that Last Whisper isn't really there for strictly late game. Plus, Janna does take up a slot in your composition, which you may not want to give away. But Last Whisper is there for the early mid game. Last Whisper is so good in this meta, specifically because there are so many vanguards in the mid game and the early game, and Last Whisper counters them, so it's very, very important that we have something to counter vanguards in the early game. You can really just struggle to, especially if you're playing a blaster style composition and you don't have red buff, you can very, very, very easily struggle to actually kill anything in the mid game. Now you might wonder why I kept Vi here. Vi is one of the few 3 costs that I will take from the early game and keep her. You know, when you get them out of the loot bubbles. The reason, there are a couple of others that I like. I like Ashe if I've got Caitlyn, and I like Bard because it can get you a nice experience advantage, even though it usually ends up costing you rounds. What I'd say about Vi is that she feeds into a very good early defensive start, which is Brawlers, and she also goes into Cybernetics, and she's one of the better early game Cybernetics. So that's why I like Vi in the early game. If I can find her, I will always attempt to keep her. Like I said though, she's a Brawler, which is also another fantastic early game. So what I decided to do here is level up. I level up at 2-2. The reason I do this is because I have something that makes sense. I can add Battlecast, which is good in the early game, I think. I have blasters, of which I can utilize my Last Whisper finally. And you're going to see it here. And we're also getting Brawlers, obviously, from the Vi. You're going to see here how having a Cogmore, this guy leveled up to 4. He had a double Darius, one with Warmogs. Like, in most circumstances, that is going to get you a win at 2-2. But Last Whisper helped me get through that front line. And it was just one of the better pickups. Now, there's a decision to be made here, right? You know, usually at 2-3, I say it's good to get 10 gold. Quite clear that if I want to get 10 gold, I would have to sell the Vi. So what I do instead is I clean up my bench, get rid of some of the things that I don't intend on using, and I do the Pult pre-level. I do this Pult pre-level because I realize that it's the best case, it's the best thing that I can do if I don't want to get rid of something like my Vi. And I do not want to get rid of the other Vi. Getting a 2-star Vi in the early game is so good, especially if you can equip her with something in Cybernetics. So that's why I don't get rid of the Vi in that scenario. And I pre-level, because if you can't make eco and you've already leveled, the best thing that you can do is pre-level so that you hit 5 coming out of the carousel round. Now, obviously, not getting carousel priority in this scenario is a bit awkward, but the best thing I can make and utilize for my early win streak is quite clearly going to be this Ionic Spark on the Vi. So I actually decide at 5 the best addition that I can have is adding another Vi to the pool, and adding another Vi to my board and giving her an Ionic Spark. Now, I wouldn't always say that doubling up on a single unit is great, but they both benefit from the Brawler bonus, and it's the best thing that I could have added in this scenario, whilst also maintaining 10 gold at round 2-5, because even though I'm on a win streak, at some point I do need to think about my economy. At some point I do need to turn around and say, economy important. Need to do something with it. So whilst that Soraka was obviously tempting, it wasn't. I just don't think it was the correct move. Now, this is obviously the move that you would quite clearly make, and this is something that having coaching from Fluffy really helped me keep my eye on. The fact is that I can now get the cybernetics on board, and I've got an item on all of my cybernetics as well. This gives me options from this point forward in the game. I can quite clearly go into cybernetics, and I can quite clearly continue down a Brawler Blaster path. I also sell the Malphite here because it's going to give me 20 gold. Now, getting 20 gold with a win streak at level 5 going into the Krug round, that's a big win. Like, this is a big win. And I wouldn't even say that we particularly high rolled. We did not hit a stupid amount of 2-stars. In fact, the only 2-star I think we had for the majority of the early game was Graves. Now, that is a good 2-star, don't get me wrong, but it's not like we hit a ridiculous amount of 2-stars. So I would say this is just good decision making about strong early synergies and slamming items. So the thing that you need to take away from my early game here is that we just had some good item slams. Like, it was just good item slams. Itemization-wise here, I pick up an Irelia, and I decide that actually a good thing to do would be obviously to make a red buff. So the clear thing that you need to do from this scenario is make a red buff on my Lucian. And then I'm just going to add a random... I'm going to add a random vest to my Irelia. This is the reason I'm not adding tier is because in the back of my mind I'm thinking, well, if I do go cybernetics, I want to keep this Irelia. What can I do with a chain vest? I could make a GA, which is a good item for Irelia, obviously. Now, red buff I would not say is I wouldn't say it's the optimal item for the current good cyber build. The current good cyber build in its current form utilizes Vayne. So you want to have Infinity Edge Last Whisper on her, really. If you're running red buff, it's usually better to run the Blaster variant of Cybernetics, where you would focus on Lucian as a carry, but obviously I didn't have that. So we decide to level up to level 6 here at 3-2. This is important because I want to maintain my win streak. I also want to get access to 4 costs as quickly as possible, because the 4 costs are going to help me define where my composition is going. Now, I've already got the Irelia, so in my mind at this point, I am split between going down a 6 cybernetic build and obviously going into Brawler Blasters. But it's looking like, just based on the units that I've got, cybernetics could be the play. Right now, I decide to say, okay, right, we can get rid of, I don't even know what unit, oh, it was a Nautilus, right? Get rid of the Nautilus. Now, I actually decided to pick up the double Vi here. This is going to cost me 1 economy, but this also gets me 5 out of the possible 9 Vi's that I need to get a Vi 3. And in both Cybernetics and Brawler Blaster, that's just a good unit. So I'm happy to sacrifice 1 economy at this stage in the game to say, well, maybe like we keep these and we can hit a Vi 3 and that'd be good. I wouldn't recommend always doing this, but if you're in a really strong position like me, that 1 gold economy might not make the difference. In terms of itemization here, ideally I would have loved the BF sword for GA. That would have been the best pickup for me in this current scenario. The second best pickup is going to be another tier, because another tier gives me options. I can go blue buff for somebody, and blue buff on Irelia is not the worst thing in the world, especially if you don't have a huge amount of damage. So blue buff on Irelia is okay. The other thing that I could utilize it for is a Frozen Heart and also a Redemption, you know, further down the line. Now, I'm not actually going to commit it right now, mainly because I don't need to. There is no need to commit at this point in time. And I don't also level up to level 7. The reason I don't level up to level 7 is I gave a quick scout of the lobby, and it looked like there were a couple of people that were definitely a little bit stronger than me. So I thought if I leveled up to 7, I didn't really have anything of value to add to my composition, and it was very likely that I would just end up dying. I made a good decision because this guy beat me. He beat me by 1 unit. I might have been able to beat him at 7, but I think it would have been... I genuinely think it would have been a bit of a rough ride if I tried to go for that. So I lose my win streak just before the neutral round. It's a bit of a shit. We don't like it when that happens. But we're still at 50 gold. We're nearly at level 7. With 82 HP in Little Legends. And when you're playing in the Little Legends universe, your number one priority, like your number one priority in the Little Legends universe is maintaining HP, because it's so easy to go out early in the Little Legends universe. If you are at the start of round 4 and you're plus 60 HP, you're actually in a pretty solid position. Now we find the Gnar here, and I decide to pre-level up to level 7, just because it's quite likely that I'm going to find at least 1 gold on this neutral round. That'll bring me back up to 50, and also then getting up to level 7, again, going to increase my chances of finding an important 4 cost. Now at this stage in the game, I'm going to start rolling a little bit. I start rolling and I'm finding that I'm actually getting some good units in this scenario. And I decide actually, wait, I find an Echo. This is the turning point of the game, okay? This is the turning point of the game. I decided that actually having an Echo is a really big deal. Echo is a great unit, like a really, really, really good unit, especially at level 2. And getting him this early on as well is a big win. So what I decide to do in this scenario is I say, okay, let's think about what synergies we can actually make here. I do a couple of rolls and I manage to hit a Jinx 2. This is now a good enough situation for me to turn around and say, okay, we don't need to go any further with this build. We don't need to roll any further right now. The biggest upgrades I'm now going to find is Echo 2 and a couple of 4 costs, of which are all going to get easier to find when I hit level 8. So I decide that, okay, this is the point in time where we're going to now start putting all of our experience into gold. Now the biggest, and again, I'm going to repeat, the break point for that was hitting Jinx 2 this early. It's a really big upgrade, and I can't overstate enough how much of a good addition this has been. How much of a big breakpoint this is for this particular composition. So we put Jinx a little bit further forward just because she's got a GA. She's pretty safe, and I just want her to be able to attack as quickly as possible. We have a lot of really good units, and the synergies that we're running is the synergies that you're starting to see open up for the late game build. We've got 3 Cybernetic, which is a very, very strong synergy actually, especially with the strength of some of the units that you have available to you, like Vayne and like Echo. We've got 2 Vanguard. It's a pretty solid front line. Not the best in the late game, but if people don't have Last Whispers, they will provide a bit of extra front line. Plus 2 Brawler. Now 4 Brawler recently got nerfed. 2 Brawler did not. Also, the prevalence of Giant Slayer is particularly good at dealing with Brawlers. So I actually don't even think that 4 Brawlers is good. And not even to mention that most of the Brawlers are really crap. There are 3 good Brawlers: Blitzcrank, Gnar, and Vi. Okay? And obviously Blitzcrank has got a good synergy in the form of, Blitzcrank's got a great synergy in the form of Chrono, and Vi's good with Cybernetic if you can fit it into your build. But for the most part, Malphite and Illaoi, they're just really bad. Like, they're actually just bad brawlers. And so that I don't actually think that you need to run them. Like, I think Malphite's good if you're intending on running the Aurelion Soul Rebel version of the build, but realistically, I don't think that Illaoi and Malphite are that good. Blitzcrank is good, obviously, and you can run him as a second brawler if you're running a more chrono-focused composition. But for me, it made sense to run the Vi, specifically because of the fact that I'm running the Cybernetic variant. And now we're at level 8. What we're going to do now is chill. The reason we're going to chill is that we do not need to find any upgrades really soon. We're actually still at 60 HP. We're still beating people pretty easily. The best thing for me now is just to chill and try and hit a level 9, and I can start to find my legendaries. What I want to add to this composition is a Lulu. Lulu at the end will give me Mystic. Now, you might not think, well, how many mages are there? There's at least 1 big mage player in this lobby, so having at least 2 mystics is going to be a good idea. The other thing to be aware of is it also helps versus a variety of just random damage that you're going to see in the lobby. I'm rolling down a little bit here. I'm guessing I'm just looking for any major upgrades or any kind of direction that I want to take my late game. I was also looking for an upgrade on Wukong and an upgrade on my Gnar, but I found the upgrade on the Echo, and this is really big because Echo 2-star is just ridiculously good. Like, Echo 2-star, he slows the attack speed of Nigh on everybody, and he just does a lot of damage. And you can see here I just knocked out the other guy. That guy is, by the way, is the guy that beat me. That guy's that beat me earlier on and knocked my streak out. So that was kind of a feel-good win. So I'm just thinking about my positioning at this point in time. I don't see any reason, and I think this is something that more people need to be aware of. There isn't actually that much reason not to backline some of your carries. You have to be a little bit aware of ergot positioning, like you can see in this particular example. But for the most part, there's not that much reason to not backline your carries, because Kai'Sa, for instance, doesn't exist anymore. Kai'Sa was one of the biggest reasons that backlining carries sometimes became a little bit dangerous, just purely for the fact that that she managed to get a huge amount of damage on the back line. But actually, infiltrators aren't that popular right now. Very few people run Mech Infiltrator, and it's quite difficult to make the Blade Master Z comp work, because you obviously need the spatula. So there isn't much reason not to backline your carries for the most part, especially with things like Gnar that can really put a sort of a spanner in your day. So right now, focus again is going to level 9. We want to hit that Lulu. We want to put it in immediately. Right here, there is a lot of options. My first priority would have been Giant Slayer. Giant Slayer would have been the ultimate addition to my Echo. Second priority is either Quicksilver or Hextech Gunblade. But given I want my Echo to survive plus boost his damage, I'm really happy to throw Hextech Gunblade on him. I think it's actually a pretty solid item. He also means that when he ults, he's going to get most of his HP back. I sell off the 2 Jinxes and go level 9 to add the Lulu, which gives me the Mystics. And in terms of positioning, what I'm trying to do is make sure that my Echo is directly opposite the carry that I'm concerned with. And this point, the Victor is the biggest concern for me, so I'm going to stick my Echo right next to him. And you can see how much damage we did with just one ultimate to that Echo right there. And we knock out the Sorcerer player, and we're still on a really big roll. We're now guaranteed top 4, and we're even now into a top 3 scenario. We're against Protectors, who just got nerfed, and I believe it's another Brawler Blaster player that we're looking at as well. And again, 2 Mystics is not bad versus like a lot of different compositions. 2 Mystics is not bad versus Protectors because of all the Nico damage. 2 Mystics is not bad versus Brawler Blaster because Jinx Rockets deal magic damage. You should not feel afraid to keep 2 Mystics in your composition, even if you're not against Sorcerers, because they are still very strong. So I was in a bit of a crap situation here, but my Echo just again beat up the Urgot, got ourselves through it, and we ended up winning pretty easily. I think I was primarily carried by Echo in that scenario. I pick up the double Aurelion Soul. Now this is a test that I'm going to do. Aurelion Soul did just get nerfed, but I wanted to see how much impact he could have as a 2-star without any items. So you're gonna see me test him in this composition in just a moment. It is a 1 versus 1, so you know it's versus Brawler Blaster, and like I said, yes, 2 Mystics is good versus Brawler Blaster, but, you know, it's not absolutely necessary. Like, you don't need to run 2 Mystics in Brawler Blaster if you don't want to. Plus, there's no real drawback for me right now running the Aurelion Soul, because I can just sell him for 14 gold. Like, if it doesn't go my way, I can actually just sell the Aurelion Soul for 14 gold. So, you know, if I don't win this easily, which, you know, the primary thing that I'm looking for is an easy win with this particular build. If I don't win it easily, then I can just sell my Aurelion Soul back for 14 gold and roll again. And you can see I lost, and I think, okay, like Aurelion Soul didn't really do the job that I wanted him to do. Let's get the 2-star Soraka back in, and let's sell the Aurelion Soul. And then put the Lulu in. That's basically the decision that I made there. I thought, okay, we've got the 2-star Soraka. That's okay. I'm not that bothered. Aurelion Soul didn't work out. Let's go back to what did. And you can see here, I've now added a Last Whisper to Echo, which means he's going to just hit everybody, which is going to now allow me to do a bit more physical damage across the team. And with the Echo and the Mystics, we end up winning very convincingly. So you see, like, it's just about playing around strong 5-cost carries, strong 4-cost carries. You don't need to play a cookie-cutter composition on this meta. It's all about just finding a good carry, especially 5-cost, and working with it. And that's what we did in this game.